Hey class, Brother Dixon here, and welcome to Lesson 4. Before we get started talking about this week's lessons material and what we're going to be doing, I wanted to give kind of just a general reminder and rule of thumb when submitting documents. One thing I see not only in this semester, but even in previous semesters, is on all these assignments you're submitting, a lot of times you download the document and it's like a standard template that you fill out and then you resubmit that for the assignment on Canvas. Just a reminder, before you go back to Canvas and submit that document, you should be saving it. Typically I would say do like a save as, name the document, something with your name. That part's not so important, but the important part is that you save the document. Almost every assignment I'll get 2 or 3 students that resubmit the same template that you downloaded. And kind of my guess of what happens is that you download that, you type everything, you answer all the questions, and then you go to your download folder and you click and drag that file or whatever, you upload it back to Canvas to submit it before you hit the save button. And so even though then you hit save and close out of the file, because you hadn't hit save before you uploaded it, then you are actually just like re-uploading the template. So just kind of a quick reminder, when you download those templates, be filling them out, saving them, then uploading them. Okay, hopefully that helps. Again, it's not everybody that does this, but pretty often, there's a couple, and I'll usually leave a comment like, hey, I couldn't give you any points on this because you just sent me back the same template file that was on the assignment. It didn't have anything filled out on it. So alright, well with that, let's jump into this week's lesson. So this week in our professional skills, we're going to be talking about networking. I'm not sure if you've been, or if you're familiar with the term, but basically what networking is, it's how you go about talking with people, kind of presenting yourself, letting people know, maybe some of your professional skills, right? It's all in networking. And nowadays with social media, and I feel like networking is probably a lot easier to do maybe than it used to be. I don't know. I've kind of only been around in the workforce since social media and LinkedIn and all this stuff has really been part of our daily lives. So networking now, a lot of it's done through LinkedIn. Maybe not everywhere and not everybody uses it, but it is a big part of the workforce is having a LinkedIn profile. So this week's assignment, what you're going to be doing is, well, you have a couple of options for your application activity. One of those is going to be creating a LinkedIn profile or doing the interview. I kind of mentioned this in last week's video that if you chose not to do a LinkedIn profile, you can do an interview with somebody. So first let's talk about the LinkedIn profile. So in the assignment, there's a link to kind of show you how to set up a LinkedIn profile. If you have one already, that's great. You can use that. You don't have to create a new one. I would just recommend after going through the module that you kind of go look at your LinkedIn profile and maybe make sure that it's up to date and that it has maybe some of those ideas and suggestions on how you can make your profile kind of make you stand out a little bit more. LinkedIn's a great tool because a lot of times recruiters or anybody, they're going on there, they're searching for somebody with certain types of job skills, and then some of them will reach out. So maybe kind of early on before you're in a professional field, it might not be as applicable, but once you graduate and you start becoming like a professional in a certain field, LinkedIn becomes really helpful. I myself, I've been contacted by recruiters because on my LinkedIn profile I have my different skills and the industry I'm in, and so I'll get recruiters that reach out to me and say, hey, I've got a company looking for someone with your skills, are you interested? And sometimes I've replied and said yes, and sometimes I look at the company they're recruiting for or the location, I'm just like, no, I'm not really interested. But still, they're reaching out to me, and vice versa. Sometimes when I've changed jobs a few times in my career, and so a lot of times I'll go to LinkedIn and kind of see what jobs are out there, because LinkedIn also has job postings. A lot of companies post their job openings on LinkedIn. So all around, LinkedIn is a great tool. So as you're doing your LinkedIn profile, I would put some time into that. You still need to have a resume. I mean, there's some people that kind of think, well, man, and nowadays, do you really need a LinkedIn profile? Do you really need a resume if you have a LinkedIn? And the answer is yes. The LinkedIn's kind of like a supplementary thing, and it's really not ever used in applying for a job. So definitely still need that resume that you just finished up, and but the LinkedIn goes along well with it. If you don't want to do the LinkedIn profile, that's totally fine. Some people just aren't into that, and they're not, and maybe it's kind of a hard thing to do in your area. Maybe it's not really used in your area. So the second option for the assignment this week is to do an interview. And the interview is to be with somebody in some sort of professional field. If you're able, it would be great to interview somebody that is in a field of work that you would like to do someday. And really the purpose of the interview is just to kind of ask them questions about the job, learn more about it, and then you're going to respond to some questions on your assignment about how the interview went, what are some things you learned, etc. So it's all explained for you in the assignment there, but I would encourage you to try and get that interview done early on in the week if that's the route you want to go. Again, remember, it's one or the other. It's not, you don't have to do both, so you either do the LinkedIn profile or you do the interview. Okay, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and let me know. One thing I do want to kind of talk about as far as when you're submitting your assignment, if you do the LinkedIn profile and there's one of the questions that kind of it mentions it's not required, but you can copy and paste like your profile link in the assignment, and then I can click on that and actually go see your LinkedIn profile. If you do that, one thing I would recommend is look in the settings on LinkedIn. I think it generally, when you create your LinkedIn profile at first, it has like where people can't see your picture unless like they follow you or or whatever you're connected. Or you can make your account like public to where anybody can see your picture. So if you want me to see like everything on your page, then you have to make it public, because obviously we're not connected on LinkedIn. And so if you want me to see that, then make sure your profile is set to public. And then after the assignment's over, if you want to switch it back to being private, that's totally fine. But it's not a requirement either to even put the URL there and share that with me. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. One thing I do just kind of want to talk about networking in general is just how powerful it can be. The current job I have right now is because of networking. There was a guy that I worked with at an old job, and I just kind of kept in, not like close touch with him, but we just kind of knew each other, and I had left, and then he had ended up leaving, and then oddly enough, like his brother ended up leaving, anyways, we all worked together. Well, one day, like randomly at Home Depot, like at a store, right, I ran into him and just kind of mentioned to him in bypassing, yeah, everything's going okay at my job right now, but at the time I was commuting pretty far, and so I just kind of mentioned, yeah, I'm kind of keeping my eyes out for something down this way, just because I'm kind of getting tired of the commute. And all of a sudden, like 2 months later, out of the blue, he contacted me saying, hey, I've got this position that I think you would be a good fit for. Would you be interested? And that's how I ended up getting the job. I mean, it was just that simple little networking conversation in a store that just totally happened to have happened. So you never know when networking is going to happen, but it is very powerful and it can help you in your career a lot. The last thing to talk about this week is the math. We're done doing review. These first few weeks we kind of were reviewing from PC 101, and now we're starting on some of the new material. So this week we're going to be learning about calculating perimeters and areas and volumes of different shapes. And what goes along with that and that tricks students up a lot is the units. So, we'll be talking in millimeters and centimeters and inches, and so sometimes for some reason the units always trick people up. So pay extra attention to the units. Kind of a word of caution when you do some of the problems. Make sure that you're reading which units it gives it to you in, right? So if it says I have a rectangle that is 5 millimeters high and 2 centimeters long or something like that, right? Then you want to make sure you do that conversion before you start calculating your perimeter or area or volume or whatever it be. Because if you don't and you are multiplying or adding centimeters and millimeters together, it just doesn't come out to be the right answer. So first thing to do is check the units, make sure all your numbers are in the same units, and then go on using the formulas and the calculations that you'll learn about this week. So that's all I've got. This ended up being a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week.